Question: do you like pointing and clicking? Well, if the answer is yes to both of these questions, I've got quite a pointy and clicky point-and-click adventure game for this video. That jingle never gets old. Today we're going to look at an adventure game made by Al Lowe, most known for his Leisure Suit Larry series. Torin's Passage was developed and published by Sierra in 1995 for MS-DOS, Windows and Mac. It was a departure from the recent style of more adult-oriented games Al wrote, and was aimed at kids in mind, which was a surprise for some. Install Torin's Passage using the classic Sierra installer, test if it'll run on your system. Looks like it should run just fine. As long as I change the color scheme in my windows so I can experience the game and hold 256 colors, yeah! Torin's Passage starts with an animated intro that combines both classical hand-drawn animation with pre-rendered 3D, which would look pretty good, but unfortunately it has this awful scanline effect attached to it, like a lot of early video game intros. The story is as follows. While a nanny was lulling little baby Torin, our protagonist, to sleep, an evil dude did evil dude things and murdered king and queen with green snake vapes. Terrified, the nanny ran off with the child. Years later, we see Torin with his foster family in a typical daily scenario of running errands, and as Torin complains about nothing happening in his life...
Ah, Boogle. Is this all my life will ever be? Running errands to this little town? I just don't want to live my life without ever having lived my life.
His parents are magically kidnapped in front of him. And he looks pretty terrified. Oh my God! Conveniently, a mysterious character convinces Torin that it must have been an evil sorceress Licentia from the lands below, and Torin's determined to find her. Obvious plot twist, the cloaked character turns out to be the evil murderous dude. After that, the game starts and you can familiarize yourself with its interface and mechanics. Using the mouse you can move the cursor around the playing screen, and when you point at something that you can interact with, it will light up so you can left click to perform action. There's no action types like in Sam & Max or similar adventure games, so it's a lot simpler. The bottom part of the screen is taken by a drawer-like inventory where you keep all of the items. But what is that little platform in the middle, huh? Well, you can put items there and see them in 3D, kind of, sort of. Not really, as it's pre-rendered. You can interact with some items only by inspecting them in this way, like opening a locket. It's neat. You can also switch between your inventory and Boogle's inventory. Boogle is your little purple furry companion who has the ability to shapeshift into items and often conveniently hides in your pouch. On some screens he's allowed to just roam freely, but at times the game will play an animation of him jumping into your bag, which can get a little annoying at times.
Hey, Boogle, let's go.
Especially since it can be inconsistent. For example, if you want to enter Torin's house in the beginning of the game, Boogle will hide in your bag just to jump out once inside. But when you walk out of the house, he doesn't hide in the bag, you just walk outside with him. And I know it's nitpicking on tiny little insignificant details that don't really impact the enjoyment of the game, but it was something that just bugged me. Moving on, the drawer in the bottom also holds a book which allows you to reread and re-listen to the last dialogue in an Hourglass. The Hourglass will give you tips on how to progress in the game for a few points. Remember those in adventure games? Each time you progress you gain points up to a maximum of 999 at the end of the game, if you haven't used any hints. It's a great way to incentivize players to continue playing instead of giving up completely on the game when they're stuck or resorting to the walkthrough. You can also set the timing for the hints, at what interval they're available, so you won't use it constantly. There's also a drop-down menu hidden in the top left corner of the screen where you can load or save game or toggle various options, like changing Torin's walking speed from a crawl to supersonic speeds. The world in which our adventures are happening is called Strata, which contains 5 different lands layered on top of each other, which reminds me a little bit of the world from Septerra's core. You start off in the creatively named Lands Above, with your end goal being the Lands Below. You'll visit 5 worlds of varying environments, creatures and people, and solve puzzles and even die. Just like the classics, if you fail you will be quote-unquote rewarded with a short animation and a snarky commentary.
You've discovered the fast way to get to the lands below.
Thankfully, there aren't too many ways to die and most of them are pretty avoidable. And that's due to the difficulty of many puzzles. Torin's Passage is a quite simple game. Maybe that's partially because I remember the game very well, but upon replaying it I noticed a lot of characters clearly speak out on what to do, or what they want or what they need. And the characters, oh my. Most characters you'll meet are unwilling to help you or will behave like crazy people, but it's quite enjoyable to talk with them, as the dialogues are quite funny, as it's a part of the overall very Saturday morning cartoon style of the game.
Have you seen this saw, player?
No, the only saw I saw is this saw I saw with.
I think we all saw that one coming.
The dialogues often include puns, and that's fine, it's simple humor, but it works. But the game has a few moments where the puns go on and on for far too long. It's also fully voice acted, which is nice. I don't think there's a single silent line in the game, and Torin really likes commenting on his current situation. The first world teaches you the ropes of the game. Your goal is to find a way to the lower world, which it's later revealed to be a giant crystal called a phenocryst. To get to it, you need to get the attention of the guard and trick him into believing you're his replacement. To get his attention, a hint is placed on the door.
In case of emergency, break glass. What could that mean?
So you just have to break a crystal with an axe you found at the beginning of the game. After that, the guard sends you off for some errands. You'll be talking to slugs, which I-5 whenever they tell a terrible joke, catch other slugs, dive headfirst into swamps and other stuff, but I never found those puzzles to be particularly challenging. It ties to a lot to the thing I've mentioned earlier. Everyone, including Torin, outright gives blatant hints on what to do. For example, in order to catch this super speedy slugs, the other slugs will tell you exactly where you can get moat scum and for what will they exchange that information. And when your first catch attempt fails, Torin will just say,
"Those slugs are so fast, I'll never catch them like this. If only I could make a trap."
Which is quite convenient, as Boogle can turn into a trap. Inventory object puzzles are not so challenging, but logic puzzles are quite the thing. At the ending of the first chapter you need to lower the barrier of the phenocrystal by putting a shard into colored slots. Logical puzzles are at an okay level of challenge. Even though I know the game very well, I still need a few minutes sometimes to figure out these again. The game also has maze puzzles, but we'll get to that later. Overall, the first world is quite easy and quite enjoyable to play. In between chapters you get flashbacks to what happened after your kidnapping as a child, and it shortly turns out that the evil sorceress Licentia was actually the nanny that saved you, but was banished because, I don't know, plot? They claim it was for kidnapping the child, but come on, she saved him. But she's plotting revenge and it's up to you to stop her. The second chapter, Escapa, happens in a mountain city home of many weird individuals and home to one of the worst parts of the game, the bitter nuts.
Live on CD-ROM from beautiful cliffside Escarpa, it's the Bitternuts!
The whole joke here is that this is a family that stars in a sitcom, and a bad one. So whenever Miss Bitternut says anything funny, it plays a laugh track.
You know, I'd ask you in, but I'm not sure there's enough air in here.
Every freaking time. It's probably the most unfunny forced moment of the whole game. But overall, Escarpa is a great chapter full of inventory object puzzles for the most part, and your goal is to find all 9 tiles to progress to the next world, Pergola. And that's where the game, at least for me, took a nosedive in quality. Pergola is a very short chapter, mostly there to introduce the love interest of the game, Princess Lena. Or at least I think she is the love interest, as she never appears again after this part. This chapter is mostly dialogue and 2 logic puzzles, which take up most of the game time as they're a little harder than the other stuff. Next world is Estenia, in which you won't see a single soul to talk to, as it's a typical lava world. This one is a complete opposite of the previous world, containing mostly logic puzzles, but it also introduces another type of puzzle, mazes. Dear God, this was the moment where I was glad that turbo walking speed was an option. And they're just that, mazes. They're fairly easy, and since you can just scroll the screen freely and see your path, it's just a time waste. They're the most boring puzzles in the whole game, if you can even call them that. And for those reasons, Pergola and Estenia are the least memorable parts of the game in my eyes, and the most boring. However, the game picks up the pace in Tenebris with tons of crazy characters, some fourth wall breaking, references to other pop culture characters, not so subtle ones, and of course, puns. Oh god, the puns!
Well, you know, I can't just leave, Bud. I'm stuck here with a trunkload of memories.
It all ends when you finally find Licentia, where during the battle with her, she realizes she was tricked and explains to Torin who he actually is. The evil dude gets turned into stone, and they all lived happily ever after? Question mark? The ending feels well, not a lot was resolved during this adventure. This might be because the game was initially meant to be a series of 5 games, but due to the market conditions, no sequels expanding upon this world have been produced. So we'll never know what happened to Torin after he learned of his royal heritage, we'll never know if he met Princess Lena again, or anything. But I've enjoyed my time with Torin's passage, even though some jokes in it are a hit or miss for me, and the difficulty isn't too complex. It's a fun little adventure game that you can easily breeze through in just a couple of hours, and I recommend playing it. And that would be it for this video. I will see you next time. Hope you enjoyed this. Sorry for the long delays, but this just takes time. I'll see you next video. See ya!
Why, I got a personal message from Al Lowe at the end. Didn't you?